You know, there's a lot of people who claim a lot of strange things, from missing time to portals. What if these were real? What if they were truly happening? For those who do believe there's some sort of break or change in the current timeline, you may also believe in the Mandela Effect. Joining us tonight is Buddy Huggins. He's here to discuss this weird, strange topic. Buddy is an astute student of Buddha, believing and studying in human consciousness and the unlimited bounds it has. His website, buddyhuggins.blogspot.com, if you want to check it out. Buddy, we got a show to do here, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the Mandela Effect, CERN, portals, timelines. There's a lot of screwed up things going on these days that we're going to get into, and you may just have the answers to what is going on. Buddy Huggins, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. How are you?
I'm great to be here with you, and I'm not a authority on anything, or will I ever admit that I know anything. And I come across that way when I say that better than I do if I told you I really knew it.
Well, I don't blame you at all, because I try to not know anything either. It just makes life a little bit easier on that end. But, Buddy, tell us how you got down the path of understanding the Mandela Effect and looking into all the strange and weird things around it. What intrigued you to it?
Well, it was an event in my life that led me to the understanding of awakening of consciousness. And I had an awakening August the 17th, 2003. And I started meeting day two, a beautiful night. She was 87 years old. Emily Limley was her name. And she had a friend named Tupelo Joe Turner. He was 91. And these were different kind of people than I'd ever met in my life. And so that started me down the trail of understanding that what had happened to me that night, August 17, 2003, was an awakening of consciousness within my being, but they were witnesses that it was happening across the world. And so that was all good, that was 2003. So I hung out with these Christ-conscious beings for a couple of years and literally witnessed miracle after miracle and timeline shifts after timeline shifts. Before anybody knew there was such thing as a Mandela Effect, I was witnessing the Christ-consciousness effect.
Very interesting. How did it affect your daily life?
It made my ability to maintain my consciousness very easy to be around Christ-conscious beings. I was able to. Now you got to picture, these people are from the South. I'm from the South, Mississippi. They didn't know anything about yoga. They didn't know anything about the Dalai Lama. They didn't know anything about Buddha, but they did know about the Bible Christ. And get this, what they had came into was that the whole story was wrong. And now these are people that held Bible cards from the Assemblies of God and other organizations simultaneously. These were evangelists, and they literally had come off the highway of preaching people to hell and heaven. So when I got with them that first week, I realized within them, and they realized within me, that something had happened to me. And it wasn't anything that I asked for. It was just something that was given to me as a gift, other than taking my own life, because that was how I was literally able to awaken. I was so miserable that I was going to kill myself. And instead of doing the deed, pulling the trigger on the .357 Magnum, a voice came out of my chest. The word was grace. And the magic started happening right after that. Literally, I woke up the next day, and my mind was completely still. I could not even remember what I was supposed to have been so upset for over 9 months for, that had drove me insane. All I had in my heart was love and forgiveness, and the ability to realize that it was my thinking that had ever harmed me. So with that on my heart, I realized that my mind was completely still. And I said, oh my God, God is real. And I didn't really even understand what those words meant, except every cell in my body changed and vibrated, and the room filled with light. And I haven't been the same since. So day 2, I met these 2 Christ-conscious beings. I met Emily first, and then 4 days or 5 days into it, I meet Joe Turner. And Joe's 91 years old, and he's just drove from the other side of Atlanta, Georgia, to Greenwood, Mississippi. And it takes him about 10 minutes to get out of the car. He had suffered a stroke 20 years earlier, and come to tell me that the stroke is what actually woke him up. And at his point of his awakening, that's when he met Emily. And those 2 were just filled with love and light. But now, supernaturally, did they understand what was happening with the timeline shifts? They really didn't have a clue. But I started recognizing it with them as I was hanging around them for 2.5 years, especially when I seen Joe Turner touch a deaf woman on her ear, and she starts hearing, and she was healed. And during me driving them around from church to church that they hadn't been in for over 10 years, in some cases 15 years, and I want you to, your audience and you, to get this. As Joe's performing these miracles, Emily's playing the piano, and she's given a word of knowledge, of wisdom. She's just filling them with nuggets of gold. And Joe is doing what Joe does. As a Christ-conscious being, he was very powerful, but his speech was slurred from the stroke, and his arm was crippled up all the way to his chest. He couldn't even unfold it. His right leg was actually drug it around to get to where he was going. So people didn't give him a chance to really understand what he was saying, except what I found out was that we would be welcome for about a day and a half or 2 days, and then all of a sudden we would get asked to leave that church, where the people in the congregations was planning on having a revival with us. But the preacher and the deacons, they had all they could take. They had all they could stand, because the truth of the light is that powerful. When you speak in these words of revelation and change about the fact that maybe we've been lied to about heaven and hell.
Well, we won't really know until we get there, my friend. We won't really know until we get there. So my question for you is, when you had your own spiritual awakening, how did you look at the world differently? What had changed for you?
Well, the first thing I realized was that everything seemed to be calmer